Good morning and welcome to another episode of Drive With Me. Today, I actually wanted to discuss the general topics of finding purpose and contentment in life and how that contrasts with how happiness is generally sold in our society. So, I currently work as a therapist, and one of the topics that I see the most when people come in interested in services, one of the major complaints, predictably, is that they are not happy. They feel anxious, they feel depressed, and they feel like their life doesn't have purpose, or it doesn't have the purpose that it used to, or they haven't achieved what they wanted or what they believe they could. And they very often are willing and interested in medications. They've often had a history of some form or another of substance use. It is very common in community health where I work. And it's in a relatively short amount of time has kind of illuminated just how true certain concepts that I learned, and many of us learned in some form or capacity years ago through even like Aristotelian and Platonic philosophy, right? Like it goes back thousands of years. This is by no means something I'm claiming to have come up with or developed myself or realized. As King Solomon said in the Bible, there is nothing new under the sun, right? And I think when it comes to human nature and human psychology, that is largely the case. And the difference is the society and the context in which that occurs. So our American Western society is very much dependent on a form of selling happiness that involves a lot of dopamine hits and instant gratification as much as possible. And this, to a degree, I may sound like an old man just kind of, whining and moaning about things. However, there is some real truth, as I've discovered over time, to that which is most worth it in life, that which is most valuable, are things that you struggle for. Having a long-term career, obtaining education, having a family, having a long-term marriage, any number of things. And sometimes a lot of these things are outside, not fully in our control, right? Just because you get married doesn't mean the other person is willing to stick it out and work on things the way that you are. Just because you have children doesn't mean that they're going to be healthy or, frankly, even survive, or that necessarily you can even have children just because you want them. Just because you want a career doesn't mean you are not laid off and that you don't have major setbacks. And in fact, that sort of thing, the difficulties, the struggle, is a part of the process of things that are worth it. And this is where age does tend to beget a certain amount of wisdom, because you are in the system and in the workforce and in often married life or have been a parent or what have you. Over time, you start to see this more and more. And it's impacted my thinking enough that I've recently been really getting into gardening. And it's kind of a different form of that. It's a little bit more short form than, say, raising children, but it is a similar mentality of, like in the gardening world, it is common to hear a phrase like or similar to, if you take care of the soil will take care of your plants, right? And so that's a lot of the key there. Similar idea to child rearing, and I think as a parent, particularly of toddlers, that is still kind of my mentality of they have their temperament set, they have their personalities, at least for this age, largely set already. And what my role is largely to make sure the environment or the soil that they are in is as good as possible, to lead them to an enriched life, not an easy one, not one that is just charmed, though I do hope they have really good childhoods. I don't want them traumatized. I don't want them overly struggling, right? There's a balance, right? Just like with plants. You want your plants to be tough and have a certain amount. For example, if you grow your plants indoors and you start them as seedlings, right, and they don't have any exposure to the wind, they tend to grow up really thin and what they call leggy, right? Just very thin stemmed. And then if you try to put them outside, the notably more dramatic shifts in temperature and in wind, or even just a light breeze, etc., tends to cause a lot of problems for them. So you want a certain amount of relatively minor adversity. They need to be able to take the rain. They need to be able to take the breeze and even winds, right? They need to be able to take the sun being out. And so that is an example of, I think, how we should go about thinking about many things in life. That you want to create the best environment possible to facilitate having a career, raising children, working on your marriage if you have it, any number of things. Chasing your dreams, building a business, anything else basically that is worth it in life. This is the mindset we need to have. We need to have a certain amount of patience. We need to have an understanding of what it is that we want with clear goals, and we need to be able to chunk those goals into smaller steps that allow us to achieve that over time. Again, to use another gardening analogy, when I'm raising seedlings to fully fruiting or producing plants, right? When I start them as a seed, I treat them differently than I do when they're a sproutling. And then when they're a smaller sproutling, I treat them differently than they do when they're more, let's say, more than 6 inches tall, and I'm now transplanting them outside. And then I treat that differently than when they're actually fully developed and producing whatever vegetable or fruit or whatever the thing is, because I grow a variety of things from carrots to corn to tomatoes and so on. So it's kind of all over the place. However, each plant not only needs to be treated slightly differently, right, for its own conditions, it also needs to be treated differently at different stages of its life. And children and marriage and careers and just life in general is no different. And so when we are in basically just indoctrinated in this Western Disney-fied system, and I like Disney, don't get me wrong, but this relatively easy dopamine hit, social media driven society, and I've fallen victim, hell, I still do from time to time, where I go down like a TikTok or YouTube Shorts rabbit hole of just watching stuff, and I can do it in the middle of a work day and then realize I've blown an hour or two really doing a whole lot of nothing. And it's tempting and it's easy, which is exactly what our brains want, right? We want the low energy, low requirement thing because that is what conserves energy, which is ultimately what biology is trying to do, right? All forms of biology conserve energy while also pursuing another goal like propagating itself, right? Whether it's having children or producing fruit to replicate as a plant, etc. It is the nature of living things to want to conserve energy and replicate itself. Just that's the bottom line. And so the type of life that tends to be best lived is one that to a degree embraces the struggle, embraces the nature of things will be hard and you will hit setbacks, and we really need to develop a resilience mindset. And it's not a switch that is flipped. It is a process of development that you build over time. And I, in my late 30s, am probably looking at this and have a far different experience than I will if I'm able to make it to 40, 50, 60 years old. I will likely have even, more refined and specific view of it. But for right now, even just getting to this point in my life, I've experienced enough of it to say it's real and it's true. And when you are a child, it is easy and tempting, even an adolescent, like a teenager into early adulthood, it is truly easy and tempting to view life in more binary terms. I want this, I effectively willing to barter socially for status, and we think about things generally more simply, and it can be tempting to take that into adulthood. We want relatively easy fixes, we want relatively quick fixes and quick answers, and so on. Whether it be politics, whether it be building muscle, working out at the gym, etc. Consistency and patience are going to be incredibly useful virtues in almost any endeavor worth doing. You want to start a YouTube channel, right, and build that up and develop a following, and or eventually make it a full-time job or what have you. Same deal. YouTube is a long-term game, especially nowadays. It's a fairly saturated thing, so it's not something that comes easily. Especially when you don't have the skill sets or the know-how. If you've maybe started a channel before, starting a new one is probably to a degree like riding a bike. But for most of us that haven't done it, if say we decide to, or you want to become a TikToker, an influencer, whatever, it takes time to develop those skill sets, to develop the marketing know-how, to develop the mindset that's needed to succeed. However, if you approach things in life as every single step as an experiment that you then tweak and improve and then try again, regardless of what it is. It can be producing more videos, it can be starting a new job, it can be realizing that a disciplinary tactic that you use with your kids, that kind of backfired. That didn't work as well as I was hoping, and let's try something else. It was either too harsh or not strict enough, and we've really struggled to stay consistent here. Or in your marriage, I really feel like there's a growing distance there, and I really would like to try to close that gap, and we should spend time together, etc. Right? Tweaking where you're at and trying to stay both patient and consistent in these things is incredibly challenging and can be incredibly draining, and that's where a lot of success in life at a variety of degrees, whether it's your health, whether it's your finances, whether it's with your family, right? These things take time and they take effort, but they often don't. What you don't want to do is wear yourself out. These are marathons, not sprints, right? So if you burn yourself out, you're very unlikely to get where you're wanting to go, unless you have real short distance goals with fairly long rest periods and a willingness and wherewithal and kind of mental focus on still hitting your target even when you're exhausted. That's a lot of it, is being able and willing to pick yourself back up and keep going, And so it has hit me as I've worked with more and more clients over time, just how much these principles can really help their lives, and this mindset shift can truly help, right? Another example is owning your own home, paying off debts, paying off student loans, finishing college, or getting your GED, depending. It's different for every person at different stages in life, but I've definitely been realizing as I'm thinking over my mental Rolodex of clients, people that I've seen and spoken to about their lives, just how many times these end up being exactly what I'm saying here: the patience, the resilience, the determination. Yes, we can have our self-empowerment talk and our positive affirmations, and we have our deep breathing exercises and mindfulness practices and all these different things that are very therapy speak. But then as I get to know these people better and we've developed more of that rapport and it's time to start challenging just a little bit, these are the things that I go for almost immediately, because they're almost universally applicable and they're almost always universally lacking. That doesn't mean people don't have real, traumas and sometimes chemical or mood imbalances that, other things can't help us. Sometimes they have family stability. There are outside things. However, these concepts of patience and consistency and long-term thinking and being willing to not only put up with, but engage with the struggle of developing your life are things that help virtually ever. I've yet to meet somebody that it can't help. And if you're successful enough and you've embraced these tactics, you're probably not coming to therapy anyway, right? So in my experience, even though I believe that everyone should have mental health check-ins and somebody to talk to and could use therapy, most people don't pursue it unless they really feel they need it. And if they need it, things are not going well in life, right? Something is not going right in life. So that's where we get to, okay, so we need to break this down and look at what you've done positively. What have you accomplished? And it can be as simple sometimes as you are here sitting in this seat for therapy right now. And that is a step towards seeking the help and the stability that you need to move forward in life, right? So there are multiple steps to this. There are the whole huge variety of ways that it can be applied. Nonetheless, these principles boil down to short-term happiness, as we call it in the West and in the English language, really is superficial. It's the fast food, it's the high sugar, high salt content of our emotional life and our well-being. And so to get healthier on a variety of levels, be it physically, emotionally, financially, socially, like in with your family, in pretty much every area, every facet of your life and all of our lives. It is important to remember, embrace the struggle, stay consistent, keep your goals in mind, and be patient. It will come. So, yeah, that was pretty much what I had today. I've just seen a lot. There's a lot of pain out there in the world. There's a lot that people are going through. There's a lot of struggle. And so I hope that this is both encouraging and helps clarify some things and perhaps give a new or a reinforced position to many people or whoever it is that watches this. Even honestly, even if it's just for myself and not a single person watches this and it's basically a video journal, I feel better just being able to say it out loud. Because it is true as far as I've experienced, and I believe it is important, and it is a time-honored, very well-tested process of developing life. It is one step at a time. Like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Any large-scale goal requires just regular movement and work at it and planning and determination, and you're not always going to have that motivation and determination, but then you rest. That's another thing. That's another critical component, is making sure you have the rest necessary. Otherwise, you really, I know I've kind of said this already, but you will burn out if you don't take care of yourself. So make sure that self-care, I know it's used in therapy a lot for those that may be watching this and have done it. You may even, some people even roll their eyes and like, oh, you're practicing, or what's your self-care looking like? Are you doing things to practice self-care? I've even had people roll their eyes. I'm like, you know what, though? It's important. And when you're coming in here talking about all the anxiety you're dealing with, what are you doing to deal with it, right? It's like the heat in your life emotionally and mentally is increasing, and you're not really getting a chance to release it. And that's exactly what self-care is supposed to be. And that can be going on walks or going to the gym. That can be sometimes vegging out and watching television all night. It can be spending time with your dogs. It can be any number of things that are relaxing, rejuvenating, recharging to you as a person. They're important. So it's simple in concept. Boils down to really just a few key factors. However, when put in motion and kept consistent and applied throughout our lives, it has a very powerful impact, and you can actually see it change and turn around in your life rather quickly. And then we don't need to keep harping on trying to stay positive and say positive affirmations to yourself. You start feeling positive about your achievements all on your own. And I love seeing that in therapy. Unfortunately, too few people actually achieve that in the kind of environment that I'm in, or they take a lot longer than any of them would like, and too many fall into major depressive ruts. And some even end up, really falling into substance use and even self-harm behaviors that can go to the point, unfortunately, commonly, of eventually ending their own lives, which is truly tragic. And I hate seeing it. I hate hearing about it. Fortunately, I have never had a client of mine do that. And my understanding is if you're in this field long enough, it's guaranteed. And there are many that are in far shorter time than I have been that have already had it once or multiple times. So I count myself truly fortunate and blessed. I don't think it's like I have some unique skill set. I think it largely comes down to just good fortune in this case, because I don't think I'm a uniquely gifted therapist or anything like that. I think we have some pretty resilient people here in northern Arizona. We have some fairly tough people, and I hope that continues. And I wish everybody that is watching this and that I work with, and in general, the best. And maybe we can get some positivity going through some tough but valuable lessons in life. So thank you. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you, truly. If you're interested in culture and politics and economics and how to better yourself, then feel free to stick around. Like the video if you enjoyed it, because we'll be talking about it more. Thanks again and have a good one. Take care.